Part 2.
Yes. Hi, this is
The next day.
It's a New Dawn, it's a new day, and we are continuing our story about how we got started camping. I feel like this is a great place in the story for us to start on a new day. We have woken up, we're refreshed, and in our story, we are kind of refreshed in our journey, starting anew. Because I mentioned that it was sometime in 2018, we started all this prep. It was the end of 2018, and I got Darrell a Christmas present. And that Christmas present was a flight to Miami and a trip to the Everglades, a backpacking trip in the Everglades. So we had gathered all of our belongings, all of the things that we needed to camp, to backpack. We gathered the information that we needed. So I felt confident enough for us to go on a backpacking trip together. And I was like, well, we got to start somewhere. So I figured I might as well make the gift. I might as well make that a surprise, like make it a surprise gift. Because if I got him the gift, then he couldn't turn back on going on the backpacking trip. So that's how we started our first backpacking trip. It wasn't some super pre-planned thing. I mean, I'm a planner, so I'm the one doing the planning anyway, for the most part. So of course, I looked up trails already. I knew which one we were gonna go to. I think I probably had already looked up like Airbnb information in Miami, and we went.
She sprung it on me, and I was like, all right, well, this is different, but here we go. Yeah, I remember specifically buying a flotation device because I knew that we'd be in the Everglades. So
Forgot about that.
yeah, so I brought that with us because I was like, don't want to drown and get eaten by Florida man or Florida gators.
How did you feel when I gave you the ticket? How did you feel about that? And I said, we're going backpacking. Were you excited about it or not?
I was not excited initially. I don't recall myself being excited, but I look forward to the new experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So fast forward to 2019, because it wasn't like we were going to leave the next day to go on this trip. It was just I gave it to him on Christmas, and then the trip was planned for January of 2019. So in January 2019, we got to Miami, and I don't remember how long we stayed there, maybe a night before we actually went to the Everglades or something. And then we got to the Everglades during.
It was a government shutdown during that time.
Yeah.
So that made things somewhat interesting. It didn't really affect us, actually. We asked the local ranger who was there if we could go on the trail, and he was kind of like, yeah, but don't get into trouble, basically. He was very, I don't know what the word for it is.
Well, you're missing a step in this, because obviously we didn't anticipate a government shutdown happening during the time we planned our trip from. There was no government shutdown in December of 2018. So we were like, we're still going to go, but we're really not sure what's going to happen. But we're not the type of people to be like, well, this is a government shutdown, so we just give up. I mean, we're going to be like, it's our first backpacking trip. We're still going to try to see it through. So what actually happened is that we went to a visitor center down there in the Everglades. I can't remember which one it was, but we went to a visitor center and we ran into a ranger there, and he was like, no, don't go out there. So there was actually one ranger that was kind of like, okay, he wasn't hostile, but he was kind of, he shrugged us off. Yeah, he was tending to other people, because there were still people coming into the visitor center and like asking him questions. I remember that there were other people around. So we were like, okay, we're still gonna go to the trailhead and see what happens. And so we went to the trailhead, and there was another ranger there, and he was the total opposite of the other guy, who was kind of curmudgeonly and little staunch. This ranger was just like, sure, go ahead, but I think he said something along the lines of, you're going at your own risk.
Yeah.
Which is really always the case anyway. I mean, when you're out there on the trails, if you've never been backpacking before and you're interested in it, ain't nobody gonna be checking on you every single second. You might not run into a ranger your entire time there. So, I mean, anytime you go out on a backpacking trail, consider it at your own risk.
Yeah, life is at your own risk. So,
Yeah.
keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm. So then we started hiking. How did you feel about the hike?
It was easy. I mean, it was all flat land. It was pretty uninteresting, I guess, to be honest with you. It was flat. It was a different scenery, than what I'm used to in Georgia.
That's how you would describe it? Uninteresting? That's what you have to say about the Everglades?
Our hike out there was not interesting.
The hike was pretty. They had all of the palms, and then they had sandy soil, and then it was nice flat land. You could see like through the forest. I mean, I thought it was pretty, and it was also not terrain that we were interested in. I feel like you're a little bit jaded now because we've hiked in so many different places, and we've been to islands and whatnot, but it was really nice, and it was our first backpacking trip. I feel like, we could have done and we could have gone on that onto the Appalachian Trail because we're already in the southeast, so that would have been pretty accessible for us. But instead, we decided to take a flight somewhere. So I guess we didn't even talk about what it meant to. We didn't even talk about what it meant to take our backpacks on a flight with us and what we could carry with us. There was a little a learning opportunity basically that happened because of us being on our first backpacking trip and having to carry our stuff with us. I'll get to that later on in the video, so keep watching. Anyway, I thought it was a nice hike. I remember it being very muddy. So there were like spots where I'm glad we had our boots. I wasn't in my Chacos days back then. I actually think I had my Chacos, but I wasn't wearing them absolutely everywhere on every hike. And my boots did come in handy because there were parts of the soil that really sunk in. And then there were parts of the trail that got pretty narrow and a little bit overgrown. But the trail in itself was pretty decently easy to navigate, kind of, and it was chill. Not a lot of uphills, not a lot of switchbacks or anything like that. I think there were parts of the trail that we kind of like, is it this way? Is it this way? And we figured it out. So do you remember the part when we got to that big open field area?
Yes, there was a part where we got to a big open field area. We couldn't figure out where to go. Now I saw where we're supposed to go, but I didn't realize at the time that that was the marker for the direction we were supposed to head. It was on a wooden post, and it was just basically like a highlighter orange or green flag hanging from it. It was low to the ground, maybe just a couple feet up, and I don't know if that was random or what. And so at this point, it's starting to get a little darker in the day, and we decide, okay, this is the way after a little bit of ado. So we start heading that way, and then we hit an obstacle, seemingly an obstacle. And we hit this marshland area, swamp basically, that we have to traverse.
It was like a mud pit, basically.
It was
more
like
than a mud pit. It was like a
than
bog.
It was a bog, sure. The difference between a bog, a swamp, and a mud pit, we don't exactly know. So for those of you people out there who are more educated in those terms than we are, salute to you. Basically, it got to a point where I was like, I don't know if we're supposed to cross this. The water was somewhat, there was dark water that we had to cross through, and I didn't know if it was something that we could safely walk through. And so it got to a point where I yell, and I say, hey, is anyone out there? Is anyone over there? I yell at full volume, full outdoor voice.
We didn't see anybody, by the way.
Yeah, I didn't see anybody, but I got a response. And they said, hey, and they came out. There's two of them. But yes, he says, hey, yeah, we're here. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. And I'm like, how do we get over there? And he says, just walk. And we're like, man, this looks kind of sketchy. Like, just walk. This feels like a trap almost, And yeah, that was the key. We were able to walk through this bog marsh. And it's like, it was one of those situations where you take a step and, the water's up to your ankle. So that was not nice. And it's, not like clear, beautiful stream. It's like murky water, mud, sand,
It was bad. It was like, okay, so backing up a little bit, I'll add some more detail of stuff you're forgetting. you were actually like, we'll just camp on this side. We're not gonna cross that. We were like, we'll camp on this side. I'm like, this isn't the side we're supposed to camp on. I know this isn't the side we're supposed to camp on. So I was pretty determined to keep going. I didn't want to just stop right there. And then that's when he had the idea to yell. Unfortunately, it was a husband and wife who were
Marty
traveling.
and his wife.
Yes, who were traveling. Fortunately, they were there because they were the only other people there.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, so we had to step through this. I feel like I think of it more like it wasn't mud and it wasn't water. It was like both of those things mixed together and just like a slop, green, a whole ecosystem happening down there. Like, so I can't even overstate how icky and kind of gross it looked and how much I did not want to step into it, just because I don't even think maybe we did grab like a long stick and stick it into it to see how deep it was. Maybe. But like I said, we were really new to backpacking, so we didn't even.
That much.
We probably did that or like
sure
stuck our trekking poles into it. I was still kind of like, what if I take another step and it's way deeper than I thought it was gonna be? Fortunately, that did not happen. And fortunately, they said, yeah, just come on over. And they were kind of like a godsend essentially, because it was kind of improbable that somebody would even be over there, because we were kind of deterred by the ranger, or at least that one ranger, and by general government shutdown. You technically weren't supposed to be over there from even going over there in the first place. So I'm really glad that they were there, and they ended up, we had to dry our socks and let our shoes dry.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, there was no rain or anything like that. So
it turned out to be very nice. So we were camping on the beach, to be clear.
Mm-hmm. And then the couple that was there, we talked to them for a while. They told us about how they were chasing the sun.
They chased the good weather.
They chased the good weather. And they started a fire. So we got to sit at the fire with them and talk to them. And like, that just felt like, to me, the perfect introduction into backpacking. Like the people, the kinds of people that you meet, the conversations that you have, how supportive people are willing to be, how you're gonna have a little bit of struggle in the beginning, how you should look up stuff on trails platforms and have maps and know more information about the actual trail you're going on beforehand. I felt like a lot of learning opportunities for
first experience.
For a first experience in general that I really appreciated. And then we got this beautiful view of the beach.
Yeah, the Everglades worked out. Florida was kind to us.
Yes, it was. We spent 2 nights there. But if you want to hear more about that, I'll put a little link up to the video that we have about mistakes we made when we were camping. But that night we were on the beach. It was very windy, and put simply, we didn't stake out our tent correctly. And we suffered because of it. It was really loud. The tent was shaking everywhere. And the rain fly was just like basically bumping up against the tent. It was loud. There was a rat that climbed onto the tent that night. Darrell punched it off.
Yeah, there was a rat that climbed up on top of the tent. I heard it like squeaking around. And then once I realized it was on top of the tent, I immediately took action and punched it, and it flew away several feet. And it didn't come back, fortunately. But from then, I was just kind of like paranoid, like, is there anything else coming? But no, it was just a one-off beach rat. It's kind of disturbing to say.
So is that a magic card? Is one beach rat?
No,
Magic the Gathering?
No beach rat. We had a good night besides that.
And a good second night.
Yeah. Actually, there's one thing that kind of went wrong. Somebody didn't fully prepare for the weather that would be out there and caught a little case of the sniffles.
My throat hurt a little bit. I don't know if I was sniffling. My throat hurt a little bit on the hike out. So when we were leaving, said goodbye to our beautiful campsite, which we always do. We always say goodbye to our campsites. And then we hiked out, and the hike out was like the hike in. It was the same way, like out and back. It wasn't a loop or anything like that. And yes, my throat didn't feel the greatest. But by the time we got to the end of the trail, I felt fine then. So I wasn't sick, okay? Look, we always argue about how getting sick happens, okay? But I felt good by the time we ended the trail. So however many hours it took us to hike out was enough for me to recover in the beautiful outdoors. We ended up going back to Miami, I think for a night or two. I don't know, something like that. Maybe just one night.
I don't know. It was at least one night.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. And this is when our little learning opportunity happened. When we had our backpacking fuel
Yes.
that we hook up to our jet boil, and we bought it while we were down in Miami when we first got there. So obviously we had a lot left. And Darrell,
I had to dispose of it,
yeah,
which there's no good way to do, apparently. So I basically just used it on nothing. I mean, I literally just let it burn out, which took
hours.
quite a while. Yeah.
And we just wanted to go to sleep.
Yeah, so just had to let it burn outside, mind you. And so I just let it empty itself out, and I think just watch YouTube videos in the meantime.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you're not supposed to throw it away while it's full, and you can't travel with it on a plane. Yeah.
And we couldn't just we didn't want to just leave it at the Airbnb we were at. It wasn't like it was like a backpacker specific hostel or something like that where other people would come through and maybe be able to make use of it. So
Yeah, no.
yeah, maybe there was somewhere to drop it before we left the Everglades, but we didn't know that place. We didn't find that place, and that was the simplest solution. Was it the easiest? I don't know. It was the simplest solution for us at the time, though.
It was easy.
Yeah.
It was easy.
Okay.
You just turn it on and let the fuel just burn out.
Mhm. Yeah.
It was just time consuming,
Yeah.
and I had to watch it, but it was very easy. Something to keep in mind.
Yeah. You just have to dispose of it before you get on the flight. That was our first trip. That's how we got into camping. That's how we got into backpacking. And then after that trip, we went on a lot of other backpacking trips. We'll save maybe specific experiences that we had on other trips for future videos, but we did a lot of backpacking after that, and we didn't do car camping until later. So we took shorter trips like in the Southeast, and then we took long road trips out to the West. And in the midst, we learned to off-road. We were learning to hike different terrains. We learned to car camp eventually. So we were learning things along the way. But that was our first trip, and that's how we got into it. We just dove into it.
That was our start.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I felt pretty empowered to be able to do other backpacking trips after that. It didn't take much for me to be like, oh, okay, I did it. It wasn't too bad. And now Everglades was flat. So honestly, I think that's kind of a great tip. So if you're just starting backpacking and you're not used to carrying everything on your back, then like flat terrain, even if it's a longer distance, is definitely a nice place to start, because at least you're not worried about the uphills and the downhills at first. You're just worried about carrying the weight on your back and on a flat surface.
Flat plane.
Yes. So if you're interested in hearing more about some of our other trips that we took later on, any other specific questions or comments about the beginning of our backpacking journey, maybe you have some of your own stories that you can share with us about how you got into backpacking and camping, we would love to hear those.
Let us know.
And we share our experiences in the hopes that you also feel empowered to start your journey. I mean, we didn't have all of this knowledge when we were young, and we just gathered it along the way. So hopefully you also feel inspired that you can do it and just feel a little bit more confident about beginning your own camping journey now. As always, be safe, stay curious, and choose adventure. Bye.